I always forget that I have to use this broken thing because there's been several times when I just sit here and talk for hours and it's doesn't pick up anything that I say. Boop boop. All right. Uh, so secrets of my success. Um, I think authenticity is what keeps getting thrown back at me. Uh, but I've been really thinking about like what am I supposed to give back in relation to all these experiences that I've been given? The point of wisdom. Because I already believe I'm a realized being. Unfortunately for myself or others, I don't know, or fortunate. Um, yeah, it's life's been a fucking weird mess, huh? Uh, but with all the nonsense that was going on about today, about how something about this October 4th dealio, and people were going to die because of some sort of nanobots in their blood system or taken to heaven or whatever. I mean, I've heard the gamut, like, and I listen. People. It's you know, I understand fear. In fact, I kind of love it a little bit, and the reason why I say that is because fear is the exact opposite of love. Um, you can't fear something and love it at the same time. There's no way. You could fear repercussions, but do you fear the thing itself? Like, should you violate this person or thing? You should fear the repercussions of it, but if you love something, you're not going to violate it, right? Um, And the reason why we start here in this lesson is simply because uh, that is the basis of my success. Um, and hopefully, over the next little bit, I will be able to explain it fully and succinctly. Um, and also, I'd like to throw out there that uh, I will have to be begging some people's forgiveness, but as far as I'm concerned, the military taught me beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission. Um, because I've known what I've been doing since. I mean, you have to have a mind of it. I just want to go over what some of the things that I learned in Intel school. Like the first thing that my instructor, I remember, guy apparently, if I can remember correctly, he got an Air Force cross he was a drone for some drone mission he was a part of. Uh, and I distinctly remember him coming in, and the first thing he did is he looked at the class and he stomped his foot and he said, "Don't believe anything that you read online." And he looked us each in the eye to make sure that we knew what was happening, right? So this is my my introduction of the theatrics of the intelligence mindset. And before I had this experience, before I was introduced to this, like I grew up in a matriarchal family, uh, raised by an old doctor of theology, and my mom who's a teacher, and on the wrestling mat, and um, in that environment, you can only operate in truth. Like, um, you know, we loved each other, and uh, we were there for each other. We support each other as a family and on the wrestling mat as a team. right, and in God. We were all united in we worship God. And so getting into this mindset, coming into the military and understanding, like I remember, uh, and he also made the distinction, like the news, it's all fake, right? And so knowing this, like that, like I remember asking my grandparents before signing. I had this. I was like right in between. There's like 12 days or so where I met the recruiter. I dropped off my buddy at the recruiter's office, and I actually met the recruiter. I talked to him, and my decision, my signing of the contract to go in. And I remember sitting in my grandparents' house, and Fox News was on, and they were talking about the conflict in the Middle East. And I asked them, I was like, "Do you think this conflict is worth fighting for?" My whole family. And they said, "Yes. This is exactly what's worth fighting for." Like we were violated, like a typical American family at the time, maybe like patriotic, and so that fueled my going in, my decision. Uh, and I ain't gonna lie, like my decision was also fueled by this girl saying that she liked a man in uniform, and uh, yeah, I really feel manipulated a bit. Um, so I should also factor in the fact that throughout school and testing, I was in the 98th percentile of everything, most everything. I think in like mechanical stuff, I was like in like the 86th percentile. Um, yeah, take that as you will. I took to get into the SEER school. God, I remember trying to get out of the drones. Oof, that was a nightmare. Just trying to drag myself up every day to ruck on top of going to work 12-hour shifts. Oh my God, I almost killed myself for the fucking military. Um, so I took this test. It was supposed to take me 3 hours, and it was like the mouse was slow, and you had to like. It was basically asking the same series of questions over and over and over again. Uh, but you had to like think about it and click the answer really slow. Um, well, I figured out what the hotkeys were. So I would just sit there and read the question, hit the hotkey, read the question, hit the hotkey, read the question, hit the hotkey. I ended up completing a 3-hour test in like 40 minutes. And the guy who was administering the test was like, "Oh, I think that you must have done something wrong. Like that's impossible." Um, and then like he calls me in like a couple days later. He's like, yeah, I mean, it was consistent. Like the answers were all consistent. Real like highly accurate, but he's like, we think that you've got narcissistic tendencies, but that's really okay because you've interacted with fighter pilots, and that's kind of what they cultivate. And I was like, guys, you trained me to try to be competent at this job, and I'm giving you my best. Like if I was on the wrestling mat, I treated my job as a wrestling mat, right? I treated my job because I loved it. Like as much as I fucking will hate the drone job itself. Uh, fuck, I probably would have done better as a Marine, honestly, but I probably would have also been killed because I'm a little intense and gung ho. Uh, but I don't know. Maybe the Marines would have done something better with me than what the Air Force did. Because the Air Force really, a lot of the problems that I had with the Air Force were simply the politicking and bullshit going on, like the top secret security compartmentalized clearances and the fucking all that type of stuff. Unfortunately, now, unless someone gives me a waiver, I would never be able to pass basic training, so I can't actually go back into the Marines. But I think that they're probably out of all the the groups of forces, they always end up being my favorite in all the scenarios. And maybe it's because of their I don't give a shit attitude. Like I love it. Like I don't give a shit attitude. And yet they're some of the most cleanest and well put together dudes I've ever met in my life. Like I love them. Uh, sorry, I smoked a lot of weed before stepping inside. But that's like part of my success too. So going into the military with this mindset, right? Especially participating what you love. Like I love combat, but I don't like the drama bullshit that I had to deal with. Like I don't mind being confrontational. In fact, if I'm in the wrong, you have every right to come and yell at me to my face and tell me that I'm wrong, and I will listen to you. But if you do that and I know that I'm right, then you will get exactly what you just gave me, times whatever is inside me. Um, but fair warning. And I won't punish you with anything more than words. I mean, you can go take a look at Reinierson, and hopefully he will feel this humiliation and carry this humiliation with him for the rest of his life for what he did. But he can also be set up as an example of like the exact wrongness of what's wrong in the military, the lies and secrecy and the degradation and all that nonsense. And the cool thing is about it though is that like I feel like some of the words that my leadership gave me, like there's some things that I'm really disappointed in my leadership, and some of them, if I ever meet you all again, like maybe we can have a whiskey together, and a blunt. I'd enjoy that, and I would actually like to ask you what it is that was going through your mind at the time certain decisions were being made. Because I was a rule follower. Like I was a like uh, I remember hearing someone talking about me, and it really pissed me off. They're like, "Oh, Bryant never says no. If you ask him to do something, he'll do it. If you give him a task, he'll fucking do it." And now I'm like I look at that life as a completely different person. Like I'm so burnt out that I literally get tired from going for a walk and sitting down at on a bench. Like I'm worn out. Like this energy within my core is like frazzled. Um, doesn't matter what occult practice that I do, doesn't matter what spiritual practice that I do, doesn't matter how many psychedelics that I do, right? It always brings me back to this frazzled, burnt out place. Like the healing process might be slow, you know, uh, but it always comes down to the fear and the love, right? And I love myself. I love who I was raised to be before joining the military. I hate the idiot that I was, blinding, trusting of people who abused me, who led me, I wouldn't say led me astray, but who lied to me and used me. And the naivety. And I always look at that as my own fault, because if these guys have it in their own nature to be like that, then I left myself open to attack. Um, and to be honest, it reminds me of like when I was about eighth grade. I had this susceptibility to the head and arm, right? And the head and arm is one of the most basic throws in wrestling. There's just something about it that at that point in time, I kept leaving myself open to it. And in a way, my emotional interactions with people since leaving Missoula and joining the military have kind of been in that way, like giving my trust to someone and just having them fucking throw me across the room, throw me across the mat. And um, learning to deal with that and get up every time. And part of the thing that I love about combatives and what it's taught me is like being able to take a beating and still stand up for yourself. You know, like even if you like, because that's where it's all at. Are you right with yourself? You know, are you right with who you are in that moment? And this is why I talk about fear in the way that we do. We have to encounter it. I love the Bene Gesserit litany of fear in Dune. Like, fear is the mind killer. I shall not fear. I will let it pass over me and through me, and to where it is gone, I shall turn my inner eye to its path, and only I shall remain. I think that's a pretty powerful statement, right? Um, oh, and God, I will be right back. I actually have a book for this. So, fear is only affects the mind, correct? And so, if you make the mind empty, that means fear is empty. That's the lesson that was taught to me, right? Um, so I'm reading this book called Secret Buddhism, the Vajrayana Practices. Uh, so happened to come across my path. Like, I need to just, I love it. Printed in 1995. Okay. So one thing that I love about Vajrayana Buddhism more than Hinayana Mahayana Buddhism is that Vajrayana Buddhism is the state of being of realization where everyone is truly part of the infinite and enlightened, and they're just kind of caught up in minuscule things, right? And so when we look at Hinayana Buddhism, it's like the small things. It's like taking care of the micro, and Mahayana Buddhism is taking care of the macro, right? And so they're not no different. They're just different viewpoints. And Vajrayana Buddhism takes the step further, is to say everyone is like that, but that the Hinayana and the Mahayana Buddhism are meant to help us lift us out from the little to the big, and from the big to the infinite. Um, uh, I hope I'm explaining this correctly. Uh, but one of the practices, uh, it's like chode, chod, uh, and this is the practice of eliminating fear, of emptiness of the mind. Um, oh shit, yeah. Okay. And an interest, God, this is so interesting. I came across this thing about power, Powa. The practice of power is the ejection of consciousness done in the context of chad, also has a particular characteristic. Power follows three variants: outer power with symbols and support, inner power with symbols and without support, and secret power without symbol or support. Honestly, this stuff is incredible. Um, and so, like, back to basic training and military and the differences of worlds. But the thing about the military is, like, I've always felt like in all my previous lives, I've been a soldier in most of them. In fact, like, I'm having these memories right now that just keep coming to me. And I've been doing this dream yoga, and it's not like controlling your dreams, right? But more like being part of the process and being aware of it. Um, and several of my uh, dreams the last few weeks have been uh, soldier related. uh, gruesome. I mean, I've gruesomely died in a couple of cases, and it's always weird to wake up in my own bed after these whole things because I give myself over to the whole thing and experience it as if it was me, myself. Um, and so I take in those experiences, and it's honestly terrifying. Uh, but the fact that like I faced death so many times is also comforting. That I could probably face it in this life, and you know, where am I going to wake up next? You know, and so I no longer fear the context of death. And the military had me face it directly, and maybe not with myself. Like I never felt like I myself was ever in danger. In fact, I always felt, well, I mean, I know that there are people that could overpower me and like kill me. Like there are people that are more powerful than me, but I never felt like anyone ever put me in danger. I could always take care of myself. And reliance on truth and myself and that understanding um, helped me deal with a world of illusion. So um, when my instructor stomped his foot and said, "Do not believe anything you see on the news or the internet," like that, I felt a kind of a sense of betrayal. Um, because like I said before, part of the reason that I joined the military was because we were presented with this narrative, and I asked my family with whom I trusted on why, and like the practicality of it is like, yeah, we'll pay for your education, and goddamn, I got a good education, and I still haven't. I tried to go back to the GI Bill, but my brain was too puckered up. Uh, so the thing about this encountering of fear and love, right? Is that in everything that I've done, I've put forth the process of love. When I was in the military and I was, the fucking slog, it was like it was miserable. And there were times when I was like, dude, do you need a day off? Like I would come into my day off because what was I gonna do? Jerk off and play video games and pig out? Yeah, of course, that's what I did in Clovis. There was nothing else to do, you know. You know, so I just go into work. Better than that. Uh, and I paid attention. I perfected my craft. I at the time I expected that I was going to be in for the full 20. I had decided that. I mean, like after you kill someone like that, you know, I always ask myself, or I've always brought up this analogy: how do you make life cheap? Is you teach someone like me to take the life with the pull of a trigger from half a world away, and that really cheapens life a lot. And um, coming from a spiritual family and a spiritual background, like I knew the grave sin that we were doing. Like I'd be really interested to read my file that the military had on me at the time, because I mean they must when I blew the whistle and someone finally had to go look at the shit, and they're just like, holy crap, we fucked this dude over. We fucked this dude over after he served 8 years honorably, you know, um, after he did all this. And part of the reason why I blew the whistle was because I knew all the rules. I knew that we were violating the rules. I knew what was happening behind the scenes, and I know the consequences of these things. And not having discipline and not having wherewithal of what your actions are going to lead to is what got us in trouble America where it's at in the first place. And in these people that like, I'm gonna just discount like black magic and rituals and aliens and all that sort of demons and nonsense, and just look at it through the human factor. Like, through simply the human factor of what was presented with us, we were handed the world's sympathy on a platter. And what did George Bush and those guys do with it? They showed their true character by being violent, by being idiots. And if there's anything that I learned in the military, it's like any idiot can kill another idiot. And I was at one point that idiot. So I'm talking from the perspective of how I grew from being an idiot. But the thing that makes a man or woman, I guess, in these situations is the exercise of restraint. Because we all understand that in the end of action of these things always ends in the end of life. And there's so many people that fear that end of life that a system of mildness can't be abused. A system of mercy can't be abused, right? And so, like, while we understand, like, to the end of things, we can take it to the end of things and just simply end life. To be able to say, I will not go that far, I will restrain myself to this level and exercise that restraint even when pushed, is really what makes the merit of a person. And there cannot be any fear within that. There can be no level of fear uh, when facing those things. And so, one of the things that my grandpa taught me on the wrestling mat, he's like, every time that you go out on the wrestling mat, you're facing the state champion. You're facing the state champion. Even if you face them 100 times and you've won 100 times, that same person out there is the state champion. That's who you are facing. You are the challenger. Until you become the champion yourself and having to defend your title, you are always the challenger. And you must always think that you're challenging the supreme master of his craft. And that's how you get better. Um, it's funny because I'm stoned a little bit. I'm just rambling. But one of the things, I play this little known game called World of Warcraft, and I do arenas. And so yesterday I stepped into a solo shuffle as a healer druid who hasn't healed in a very long time. And I'd set up my bars and I set up all these things. Like, you might not understand what I'm saying, but I'm just gonna say I set up all my systems, and then I get into the match and my bar were all erased. And I'm like, or they weren't like erased, but they were like reverted. Like, all the spells were done. How I had set up was erased. And I'm sitting there like trying to manually click on shit. And I can't do it. This warrior just charges in me and just destroys me every fucking time. And this fucking warlock, like, just starts shitting on me. I'm like trying to apologize. I'm like, I'm so sorry, dude. Like, my bindings are all wrong. Like, this is my first match. I'm like a 0 rating. Like, I just fucked up everything. And I'm not gonna say that it wasn't my fault. It was. And this guy was like, just fucking report him for botting, report him for cheating, report. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, dude. You're gonna get 3 fucking wins out of this, no matter what, or whatever, because I'm a loser. Like, you're gonna get your fucking wins. I'm sorry. Don't fucking shit on me because, and I can't stand it. I fucking can't stand it. I can't stand those rude assholes. Like, I'm sitting there trying to apologize. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. My bars are fucked up. Oh, fucking report him. You fucking, like, oh god. Like, motherfucker has no respect for others, has no regard for others, and he takes the consideration of a video game way above anything else. Like, I really find these people disgusting. I hate them. Um, but yeah. Uh, I don't know why I told that story. I felt like it was pertinent for the time. Anyways, you know, uh, I guess that's like part of understanding success too, is like understanding your own faults and failures, like where you come into the wrong. Like, even though I had lost control of my computer, I didn't blame anyone else. It was all my own fault. Like, I should have tested it. I probably should have gone into like a skirmish or something, or maybe even a battleground. Uh, but I didn't. And so we learn from that process. Uh, but that type of person, actually, and he didn't even know who he was saying that to. And like, one of the things, I guess, I can just lead off in this, and like an anonymity on the internet. I don't fucking respect you if you just fucking say shit anonymously to me online. And I know that it's all fabricated theater of playing a fucking character. Um, and some people forget themselves when playing this fucking character, and they forget that the veil that lies between you, would you say this shit to someone's face? Probably not. And I doubt you would probably say that fucking shit to my face. And this is also why I miss the wrestling mat, is because on the wrestling mat, at least like all the faults and failures were distinctly my own. Like, if I lost on the wrestling mat, it was because I didn't prepare enough. And like, I could look my opponent in the face, I can shake his hand, and I can say, yeah, I'm meeting you evenly here on the battlefield. And I value fairness. One thing that one of my Marine buddies told me, he's like, yeah, if you value fairness, then you're fucking gonna lose that fight. You're not, you're, fucking, what did he say? If you value fairness, you're not looking to win, something like that. But I think that, like, that's how you truly win, right? If you can win in fairness, of course, like, okay, what manner of a win is it to fire a drone missile at someone who basically has a pellet gun and slingshots? There's no, yeah, sure, pull the trigger and you win. Hooray, you won. No one cares. It was an obvious outcome. There's no glory in that victory, because it was obvious that you couldn't face, like, you had to escalate it that far because you were terrified of your wrongness. Because I also think that I truly honestly believe that facing something in fairness and overcoming it in fairness is the greatest accomplishment that one could find in oneself. And if you can always find a way to bring it back to fairness, not fear losing, not fear death, but operate purely out of love from your heart. Understand that the mind should be focused on righteousness and duty. The mind should be focused on the goal. The mind should understand this is where we want to be in the picture upon which we view things. But the motivation has to be solely through love itself. And it's not like ooey gooey, feel good love, romantic love. Romantic love does not exist. Romantic love is fairy tale love. Okay? I'm just going to say that straight up. Love through action, love through understanding and awareness is the true thing. And if you, Sun Tzu says that if you know yourself and you know your enemy, then you need not fear the results of any fight. And Maimoto Masashi says that if you know how to fight one person, you can fight 10,000 people. And so, learning these principles, growing up on them, like, these are things that I refined through education in my military experience, but these are also things that I intrinsically picked up. I picked them up easily because they were understood on the wrestling mat. If I understood how to approach someone on the wrestling mat, then I know how to approach other people. Like, what am I looking for? Okay, on the wrestling mat, I'm looking for where someone's footwork. I'm looking for where their hands are at. I'm looking for where their mind is focused, where their focus is, right? And if I know what my opponent's going to do, I can be prepared against it and focus solely on what I'm supposed to accomplish, right? My goal was the fireman's carry. That's the Bryant family takedown. Like, if I miss that arm from the fireman's carry, then I know my next move is to go to a double leg takedown. And if I miss the double leg takedown, I can slide into a single leg takedown, right? And so through that process of elimination, I know my steps of what task I'm supposed to accomplish, which is bringing the person down to the mat. So if I take this principle of encountering people maybe on an emotional level, right? Where am I trying to be on an emotional and mental level? Right? Where is the person's weakness? Where is their mind focused on? And if you can understand where someone's mind is focused on, which is usually their fear, you can uh, poke it a little bit. And this is a principle called headology that I learned, where you poke that fear just a tiny bit and they take care of it for themselves, right? It's a method of self-destruction. It's built into every human being. Um, but the counter of that is focus solely on the process of doing the task through simply doing the task itself, and then loving the task for what it is, and then accomplishing the task fully so it leaves nothing to be desired. Um, and honestly, these are principles that I've tried to explain to people all the time, and they yeah, some people just don't seem to understand it. My grandpa took uh, uh, wrestling teams all over the world. Like the Dream Team Classic is something that he put on every year, where he got the best wrestlers from every state in the top wrestlers of the United States versus the best wrestlers of one state. You know, and through his teaching and discipline and uh, uh, example, I learned all these things, right? And uh, I learned that I just fucking miss the wrestling mat. Actually, I miss it. I miss the process. I miss I miss purposely being out of shape in September, like no like pretty much being in shape until middle of July, and then uh, being out of shape about September, and then start of October, it's like, okay, preparing for wrestling season and getting back into that shape, feeling the power within, and like the pain, you just learn to love it, right? And you learn to operate through those principles and that structure, because that allows you to grow and accelerate the fastest. Um, yeah. I think that's kind of the secret of my success a little bit. And I know I had a couple visitors pop in. I hope they learned something. But I mean, it's not complicated, right? It's like being able to hold something in its fullness and then see its opposite in the shadow. You know, uh, yeah, always give your best. And it sucks because I've learned that when you give your best, the only reason it's misconstrued is through on my memory, because I keep telling the same story over and over again, but I'm telling you literally directly from memory, from the very same fucking memory that I was raised to have, that the military trained me to have. Like I had to go through a checklist for every fucking thing in the drones. So I memorized the checklist, but I ran the checklist all the time. I like I knew it. how is this not normal? Right? Like, yeah. I don't know. I faced off against my own country in my own hometown. Won, victorious. Woo! Shut down my fucking self-proclaimed hater, I guess. And he wasn't even a worthy adversary, you know. Uh, I mean, I'm not even sure what would be a worthy adversary. And every time I tried to get away from the fight, Rynearson just kept trying to pull me back. And I don't know what it was that he was trying to fucking prove. There was one time where he was like, "Oh, you think you're God, huh?" And I was like, "What? I know who God is. I know who God is. Is it me? No, I'm a broken reflection of what God created." uh, like, and so I actually have a lot of compassion for him because Rynearson is kind of like should have been set up for success, and he fucking fucked it up every step of the way. Um, Thinking of his own magnificence before duty. Like, I put duty first. I always put duty first. Like, I followed the principles and conduct that were given before me. My grandfather said that the only thing that a man has of worth in this world is his word. And if you cannot fulfill your word, then you have no worth. And my worth and my word are gold. And I give them away solidly because I have an infinite wealth of it. Why not? Why not share this wealth of knowledge and wisdom that has been given to me, that I have cultivated and has been fruitful in my life? Like, I'm free to walk in my own hometown, even openly threatened by parasitic wealthy invaders. Like, I feel comfortable freely walking in my own home, in my own country, after blowing the whistle, being called a traitor, being denied recognition, seeing the person who threw me in jail being recognized for 40 years of service to the community, and seeing the prosecutor who worked against me being promoted to uh, deputy city attorney. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I mean, these guys can give themselves all the accolades that they want. They can write them, they can magician themselves in new laws or write new restraints on what they fucking think is reality, but the truth will always win out. And principles of conduct and discipline will always overcome greed and corruption. I have 100% faith in that. And that faith in maybe not the greater goodness in mankind, but the greater, I think it's more like the greater harmony, right? And the reason why I think whistleblowing is important comes to this very fact, is that a whistleblower's job is to point out the fact of where we have violated the harmony of what we have been doing. And unfortunately, the boiling frog scenario appears right here, where we've slowly increase the temperature and in the wrongs to where we should have blown the whistle many, many years ago and did not, or did not pay attention to those that did. And so we've gotten to this point of where we're at now. And it's interesting too, bringing this up to a greater political scale. It's interesting to say that last election, I was saying that that was going to be the final election of that we know it as it's traditionally been in America. And with Speaker McCarthy being ousted and pedophile Matt Gaetz leading the charge uh, I feel like the United States is about to take a really dark downturn, and it can be countered. I mean, we still the turn hasn't gotten to there yet, so it can still be avoided. It can still be turned around, and but if we, you know, God, it's so bad. Like we have again, we're encountering all these fears. Like we're encountering all these, and but this is how we encounter these feels. Like what are they? Just are they truly disturbing our mind? Are we, because we're not taking part in them, so they shouldn't disturb you. You know, it's like when it's like stepping into like a dirty pond. Like you might get your fucking feet dirty and wet, but sometimes you have to get dirty and look at it for what it is. And um, like I've seen the very vileness of America firsthand, of what we've become, um, what we were in the process of becoming. I'm not sure if that someone like me could do more than just be the. I think maybe my grandfather wanted me to be a witness. Like he always talked about this idea of being a witness, and um, I'm pretty sure my grandpa knew a lot far more than he let on, because there were times I've been looking back and I've been talking about this with my therapist, of my grandfather like taking me aside and being very serious with me, like more serious than he was with anyone else. And I realize, and because with everyone else he was like a doddering old man. Like he didn't play favorites. He lavished attention and kindness and care, and he was kind of an ornery trickster. But with me he had a certain level of seriousness that I'm not sure he had with others. But maybe because I was his like the inheritor of his ministry. But he always factored in this idea of being a witness, and to be a witness, you know, sometimes truly you probably have to take part in it, and then be given the space to step back and a truthful reflection and examination of it. And part of the success that I've encountered comes through the process of recognizing my own faults and wrongs and being honest with myself, and then bringing that forth with the understanding of the instructions that I've been given. And being in the drone program, I always wonder like what their intent was. Like they had to have known that they were going to push me. There's like a less than 2% chance of failure, pushing me to do what they did. Like I mean, I wonder if did they want me to fail? Did they want me to succeed? What does that mean? Like, what does it mean now? Like, I'm taking a spiritual path. I'm not going to take a political path. I don't want it. Like, fuck it. I don't want materialistic shit. I don't want to be a CEO. I've been had people come to me for book offers and shit, and I said no. Like, A, I wasn't ready, and B, I'm not trying to profit off of this shit. Um, but I'm trying to be a good example. Uh, God, it's funny because this last week has been. It's really funny. So this lady, her name's Toby. She's part of Code Pink, and she made a documentary called Beyond the Horizon Line or something. Battles Beyond the Horizon or something like that, featuring stuff that I've done as part of her documentary, and people say that it's made me look favorably, I guess, but she's the main character. Uh, so this is the lady that took my image and put it on a giant tarp and put it in front of bases, which in turn got a lot of military people to fucking hate me. Like the amount of hate that people spewed towards me for her using my fucking image to represent the number of people that they were killing and like ah god, it's so fucking. And she used my documentary, and so she's got arrested, and the group of people she got arrested for with were gonna get a trial, and uh, wanted witnesses, but she refuses to let me be a witness because she says that I'm unreliable. Yeah, what a fucking bitch. Another one of my friends, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I've been told I've been in. I'm a circus fire. You know, I'm intense. Um, uh, but like someone called me a live wire this last week because I've got this. I don't know. I'm just being myself, and I'm being what it is that I was conditioned to be, trained to be. Like, and the skills and shit are really valuable and practical. You know, I've I keep just going over the very first. Let's just go over the first chapter of Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Okay, Sun Tzu says there are 5 things by which I see that can guarantee victory, and the first of them is the moral law. The second of them is heaven. The third is the earth. The fourth is the general, and the fifth is the sovereign. So let me explain these to you, because if you have all 4 but not the moral law, you will always lose. The moral law is always what is in accord with the principles of right conduct. Heaven is the principles which govern this universe. Earth is the weather and the terrain. The general is that upon which skill is required to accomplish the task, and the sovereign is that for which the task is to be accomplished. And if you understand these principles, you will be guaranteed victory in all fights, in all conflicts. Um, hmm, I love it. And the funny thing is like, you know, people think, oh, Napoleon was a great general, and he didn't like the art of war. That's because he was a fucking aristocrat, man. He was just he succeeded through he. Not to say that he wasn't a tactical and strategic genius, but to discount the practicality of Sun Tzu is to, you know, discount a method for your own improvement and success. Um, and before I even go further, like I said before, any idiot can kill another idiot. And so we can see that any human being or any man is capable of any task. And so that which a man restrains himself by is which affords him merit. Um, we see that, like, if we value the principles of conduct in warfare, you know, war is deception, right? And so if we operate on the principle of when we engage in warfare, we are deceiving our enemy to overcome. And the lowest thing on the battlefield is the lowest conflict there can be is the conflict of physical conflict. That's, you know, because there is nothing beyond that. Like, you're done in this lifetime at the end of a physical conflict. So we got physical conflict, we got emotional conflict, we got mental conflict, and we got spiritual conflict. Okay, and maybe conscious. We can take a step conscious conflict, and so uh, rising up from the physical conflict to the emotional conflict, right? We go to the principles of getting beyond physical, the five senses, to where we get into the back to the emotion of fear and love. And the emotional conflict is the crux, right? Because the mental conflict is realizing the emptiness of the mind. And the emotional conflict is whether or not you're going to give yourself over to love or fear. Because hate can exist in both spheres, actually. Hate, you can fear that which you hate, and hate that which you fear, and you can hate that which you love. And the Christ says in the Bible, he says, you will keep that which you hate, and you will lose that which you love. Okay? And that is the emotional conflict. So again, we step back up to the mental conflict, and the mental conflict is just the realization of the emptiness of the mind, the creation of experiential phenomenon, right? And then we get into the spiritual conflict, and the spiritual conflict is kind of like the energy conflict, um, and it's not the principles of good and evil. It's the principles of the source of your energy. Where does your chi come from? You know, are you cultivating that chi for uh, divine or demonic purposes, right? And that's why it goes beyond good and evil, and it becomes a choice of the uh, consciousness. And so consciousness, uh, the conflict in consciousness is just the awakening process, like being awake and aware of all those processes happening at once at the same time, and understanding the principles of conduct within those spheres of conflict. And so the warrior's job for success is to bring those of principles into harmony within oneself, and to make sure that physical conflict doesn't end in violence. Emotional conflict doesn't end in violence. Mental conflict doesn't end in violence. Spiritual conflict doesn't end in violence. And the conscious awakening process is not colored by violence. You know? The sport of wrestling, the legend has it, as it was told to me, was that it was created by men who said that I could kill you, you could kill me, so let's come up with a method of overcoming each other without hurting one another. Because to hurt one another in is not an example of mastery. It's not an example of uh, control, discipline, um, understanding, balance. Um, I've had to talk about this over, like, with a couple of people. Like, hope has to die. My mom has all this fucking shit: love, grateful, thankful, hope, blessed, family, all this type of stuff. Yeah, those are great. Those are fun principles to dwell upon and to examine. But just as you have to let go of the fear and realize that that is empty, so you must also realize hope is the same thing. And so without hope or fear clouding your conduct, you can proceed to do your duty, doing the right thing at all times, because you operate through the power of love. Um, and that doesn't mean you're not going to get angry. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get upset. It just means that when those things happen, you understand why they happen. You've laid down your principles, you've laid down your boundaries, and someone violated them. You see someone else violating someone else's boundaries and sanctity of the person. So you consciously bring that. Uh, the Buddhists also have this other term where it's called the empower, right? Where it's the open sky door, right? Seen it. I've seen it. Like it's interesting. I didn't know what I was experiencing when I was seeing it, but now that I've had the reflection and the knowledge that I've found it, I understand where it comes from. Um, and so, if we think about power, man, my fucking the weeds are wearing out. I need to go probably go smoke again. But I'm gonna finish on this since it's been an hour. But if we think about inner power, power that is internal but without structure, right? Uh, and then uh, the power that is beyond that, which is just simply in itself without force or structure. Um, and we try to embody that within ourselves. We focus on it. We bring it to fruition. Uh, you have to really to be truly successful, to be truly in one with that thing. You have to surrender. Like that's the surrender. Like give up these things. Like I get like when I gave up my hopes and my dreams. I gave up. Uh, uh, my illusions. I gave up my fears. I gave up these things. Like I consciously made the decision to give up these things and turn away from them because they no longer served me. Um, and maybe that my little stoner ramble will help someone out there find their own fucking power and to fix things because I don't know what to do honestly. Uh, the only thing that I have left to do is to go fight a fucking grizzly bear with my bare hands. Um, but until that time happens, what's going to happen is uh, probably going to make some more of these videos and talk about how to overcome challenges and how to face obstacles in your way and how to do the right thing because these are the same principles that I was given. And I mean, you can do you I mean, if you've done the wrong thing, trust me, I've done the wrong thing. You know, when I thought that I couldn't sin no more and I couldn't dirty myself up after fucking murdering, you know, I gave myself over to, I guess it wouldn't be lust, but I let women take advantage of me, thinking instead of holding myself sacred and saving myself after I was violated, I was like, okay, if God's gonna let me be violated, then and no one stopped this, then I guess I deserve it. And through the remembrance, so Chris Antel is a famous VA chaplain that I've talked to, and uh, very wise man. Um, and he would always say, what would your grandfather say to you? And that was really hard because, like, through the process of murder and that type of deal, and I felt like the prodigal son, except for who am I to return home to? My grandfather's dead. You know, I, I forced myself to live homeless for a while because I was so ashamed of facing my family and I felt like a failure. My community made me feel like a failure. Like I lived by these principles and they made me murder. They made me violate myself and I felt like I was unworthy. I felt like I was unlovable. I hated myself. But I never feared myself. Like I hated that. And I let myself be degraded. I let myself be humiliated. I let myself be, to the point where they drug me out in front of the world and let me talk about how much I fucking violated my soul and how guilty that I felt of it and all the things that I was trying to do to rectify it and find people that will help me rectify it. But really, people would rather use me as a sensation than try to help me solve the problems that I brought up. And so, understanding that as well, the Sun Tzu says this: one may know how to conquer without having the capacity to do so. And so, understanding that as well has allowed me to come to the point where I can give forth my greatest effort and I can give forth the principles and understanding of how we should be, but I'm not going to change the world or force someone to fix these issues. I can only bring them up through the context of me having directly experienced them. Like and hopefully through the honesty of me never having made money off of this, having gone through academic lenses and having tried to find people that would go through the process of bringing justice to fullness rather than the sensationalization of the happenings. I hope that that would be worth supporting, you know. Huh. But we'll see. I'm going to continue being obnoxious to the corrupted people, and I hope that those people that are doing their duty and that they understand the principles of right conduct and they're in positions of power, they give me free reign, because the end goal is, for me, is harmony and peace. Okay. And I will do that however it is that I feel like it can be accomplished. And I will challenge and I will bring forth these issues on every level above physical. But if anything is brought to my level on the physical level, I will finish it. So one must be prepared, right? And I hope that through my stoner rambling and talking about these things, you understand what I tolerate and what I don't tolerate and what I see in people and how they treat others and how you can be successful in your own right. And